And we're back here for the second installment of the Jayhawker Podcast. I am Greg Gurley. We're joined by Kansas legend, all-time winningest Jayhawk Mitch Lightfoot, and another Kansas legend, as he will be on the show every week, obviously, Wayne Simien, Jersey retired. We all know about Wayne. This is the Jayhawker Podcast, brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System. We're going to dive right in with our guest, the all-time winningest Jayhawk, which we got to put a little asterisk by it because, as you know, with sarcasm, you played 12, 15 years, but in reality, it was 6 to play 5. And you are the all-time winningest. We can't take that away from you, but welcome back to Allen Fieldhouse. Tell us a little bit about, since the national championship, what you've been doing, capitalizing on national championship, just kind of basking in all the glory, professional career, and why you're back now.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be back. It's been a crazy last few months. Super excited to come back and see a few games and then celebrate the 125th anniversary of Kansas basketball. That was really cool. But since the national championship, we did barnstorming, did a bunch of different stuff, got to interact with a ton of the fans. It was really cool to experience that enthusiasm with not only my teammates but the people that care about Kansas basketball so much. Got to go play professionally. I went to a team called the Kirschum Knights in Germany, played there, was there for 3 months, ended up hurting my shoulder, had to come back into town for surgery. So I'll be back here for rehab and looking forward to getting healthy and following along with the rest of the season.
We'll get into K-State here a little bit later, a couple nights ago with the loss in Manhattan, but Wayne, you were so heavily involved, like us all, in the 125th anniversary of Kansas basketball. How great was it to see your teammates, my teammates, Kansas players in general, have Mitch back? Talk about last weekend a little bit.
Yeah, last week was so special. You know, that's something that we do about every 5 years is to have a reunion celebrating and commemorating the legacy of Kansas basketball. But I think the most recent one was particularly special because we had so much to rally around. Obviously coming off the national championship, which so many guys, it doesn't matter what era you played in, take so much pride and enthusiasm from what this generation of Jayhawks can accomplish. And then also taking time to celebrate being crowned the all-time winningest program in Division I basketball, which is incredible for you, Mitch, because you got 2 all-time stats.
That's crazy.
All-time wins leader here at KU, and then all-time winningest program in Division I basketball. So there was so much to be able to rally around and to celebrate. And then, of course, Greg and you and I talked about it, how important and special it could be to get all 4 living head coaches back. It was a heavy lift. It was accomplished, and it was as good as we could have hoped it.
I mean, to put it in perspective, it's hard because we've had 8 coaches ever in 125 years, and 4 are still with us. And like Wayne said, we had to do a lot of heavy lifting and get over some obstacles to get them all 4 here. Ted Owens, 93 years old. Larry Brown lives in Charlotte. It just wasn't easy, but it all came together. Wayne deserves a ton of credit for getting everything together. And as a guy who just graduated, at times when you're playing, you don't really appreciate the past as much until you've graduated, and it's only been 6 months. So did you get that feel? Like, is it starting to sink in how special it was? I know Bill always jokes, you cut Mitch open and he'll bleed blue, and that's true.
I believe it's a little birdie, a little Jayhawk.
A little bird. That's right.
Yeah.
So, but you probably appreciate it more than others, but with all 4 of those guys up on the stage, Brian Haney did an amazing job emceeing it, but Bill kind of takes over and gives his speech and talks about how no one's bigger than the program. Not Roy Williams, not Ted Owens, not Larry Brown, not himself, because we're all placeholders, and we owe it all to the people that came before us. Has you absorbed that yet? Do you understand that more now since 8 months ago?
As I grew throughout my career, that started to become more and more instilled in me. Just being around Coach and him talking about that, and like he says, you'll never be the best player. Wilt played here. You'll never be the best coach because Fog Allen coached here.
The interesting part of this, Bill, I think, is 19 wins away from passing.
Does he change
Fog
the
out.
narrative once you ask him?
But knowing Bill the way we all know him,
I don't think he will.
he deflects, and he'll have his excuses that, hey, they didn't play that many games, and obviously Bill's going to pass him. It's about 15 years earlier than what Fogg did, but it's because of the amount of games they played and all that. But it is going to be a monumental deal, and again, he'll deflect because that's the way he is. But I like that you said that. Wilt played here, Fogg coached here, and that's true. But man, has he been good for us? And again, the way he controls a room, like he did on Saturday night, where he said all the right things about each one of the coaches and former players, and everyone just is like.
I think it was so special how he also talked about, like, it'll never be about, like, oh, I played for Coach Williams, so I'm not as big a part of the family as I am now, or I played for Coach Owens, so I'm not as big a part of the family as I am now, or Coach Brown. That's not the case. Like, everyone here is intertwined as a part of the family, and everybody that played for Coach Owens is the same amount of the family as somebody that played for Coach Self, and we all have that respect for each other.
How about Wayne? He played for Roy and Bill, 2 years with each, and I don't think anyone will argue this. They're very different coaching styles. I'm around Bill a lot. Never played for him, but I was obviously played for Roy. Totally different, but both highly successful.
Yeah, both here and in other locations. But it's great just to show there's more than one way to do it. And I'm sure that, the guy who is eventually going to have to replace Coach Self, no one likes to talk about that, but it'll eventually happen, may have a different way of doing things. And, man, I can remember even the scrutiny, when Coach Self first got here in terms of the style of play. And, we were coming off, Roy Williams-style type of basketball where you're scoring 96 points a game, and Coach Self coming in with the high-low offense and more of a defensive disposition, and some people were kind of groveling about that. And then lo and behold, we start peeling off conference championships, Final Fours, and 2 national championships later, and it's all good.
Can you retell the story that Bill told Saturday about your first meeting with Bill in the locker room and what he was preaching to the team, and then what one of your best friends and teammates
my roommate
said,
at the time.
and how, I don't know if it was awkward or what, but it took some balls for Keith to say that because he had just met Bill Self. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult transition, obviously, because we had so much success. I mean, we were coming off back-to-back conference championships, back-to-back Final Fours. So just lost in the championship game, and we're returning so much. And then also, mind you, that we had just beat Illinois, the year before in the tournament. Coach Self had never gone to a Final Four up until that point, and we had 2 tallied, on our resumes. And so you add the emotion of, seeing Coach Williams take off, and then you add the additional emotion of having a brand new guy come in who never recruited you, who you're basically forced to be and played for, who you just beat a few years earlier. And so it was kind of a powder keg, and Coach was obviously trying to communicate and articulate his style of play and his philosophy, which sounded all good. Until Keith was like, yeah, but we just whooped you guys. So, how about you try to do things our way? Which, in all honesty, buy-in is probably one of the most important ingredients when it comes to any type of change or transition, let alone in coaching transition. And so I would say lack of buy-in, and I could be numbered in that. I might not have been verbalizing it like Keith, but I had that same sentiment, in my mind and heart, actually kept 2 very talented teams, my junior and senior years. I think we underachieved. And I think a lot of that had to do with, not having the buy-in that was necessary. And then conversely, you fast forward that until 2022, the team last year. That's one of the things that I think was one of their most, significant attributes is being fully bought in to Coach Self and his way of doing things. It allowed you to bounce back from, being embarrassed by Kentucky. It allowed us to bounce back from a 15-point deficit at halftime. That type of buy-in is really crucial, and Coach has that now.
And as we all know, Bill, personally, Keith challenging him probably with a lot of coaches wouldn't have gone over very well. With Bill, he's kind of like, all right, that's fair. We'll see how it goes. It wasn't like some coaches would be like, Hey, get your ass out on the court and let's
Hey,
run.
hey, it only ushered us into the hardest boot camp of all time.
All right. I wasn't there
our
for
conditioning. You know, our preseason conditioning. I think Coach actually remembered that during preseason conditioning that year because he laid it on us pretty thick.
But all of you guys that kind of questioned Bill Self at that time, how quickly did you buy in? I mean, the boot camp was probably hard, but when did you really realize, and when did you realize that, hey, I got a coach. I got the guy. He knows what he's doing, and I'm going to run through a wall for him.
For me, I mean, I knew that before I got here, so
Yeah.
that's my reason for coming here, just to play for Coach and seeing his success. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, when I was getting recruited, he had already run off, I think, 12 Big 12 championships in a row and a national championship. So I was pretty bought into the way he wanted to do it.
Did you ever have any moments in your first 3 or 4 months you're like, was this the right decision?
Not really. I mean, I went through
you had
growing
patience.
pains.
You understood.
Yeah.
Like I think one of the biggest things right now that players don't have is patience. Like if all of a sudden they just don't play much, we're going through that right now with some of our guys. There's some guys that thought they were going to play more than they have, and it's got to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on that, like, I kind of saw I had the gift of, like, a little bit of patience and can see down the line a little bit. Like, hey, it might not happen right now, but a little sacrifice right now is going to pay off a lot here in the coming years. And I think that was the case. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Basketball is a crazy game, and there's going to be opportunity. And Coach Self, he's always been a guy that if you are playing better basketball than someone, he'll never hold oh, you do this, you're this, you're that. No. He's going to play who's giving him the best chance to win. And if you're doing that, he's going to play you.
I think you and I are pretty similar in like we understood who we are. We're not,
very confident, yeah.
Yeah, we're confident in our abilities, but Wayne doesn't have that same belief. He's a McDonald's All-American. He goes, I better start first day or this is crap. But you and I, kind of same page. Now, also a reason you and I aren't in the rafters, and that dude is.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great basketball player right there. I mean,
You got no response?
No, I mean, just, to that, it takes all of it, one of the things that I appreciate about the 125 panel is, Coach Owens had Darnell Valentine up there who, was a first-team All-American Southside guy in the rafters. Coach Self had Ben McLemore, number 7 pick in the draft, could have been number 1, number 2 pick in the draft, elite player. Coach Williams had Nick Bradford up there. With Nick Collison in the crowd at the same time, who is, 15-year NBA vet, Hall of Famer here as well. And I really appreciated that because there are so many guys like a Nick Bradford, like a Mitch Lightfoot, glue guys that have contributed to this place just as much as the big names, that people know every day as Jayhawk fans. And so, I think that goes to Coach Self's point. There's no one player or coach that's bigger than Kansas basketball because those contributions from guys like that, from managers, from strength staff, from athletic trainers, all goes into making this place what it's become.
And how often does a team full of McDonald's All-Americans win the national title?
That's why Coach Calipari is on the hot seat right now.
You got to have the Mitch Lightfoots. You got to have, and what Bill does an amazing job, and Roy does as well, everybody, the really, really good ones, is they convince everybody that the pie is big enough for everyone to have a slice. Sacrifice some things you did in Arizona. You were the guy. And you weren't the guy here, but you figured out your role, and that's hard for people because in today's college basketball and really high school basketball, you got guys that play at 4 different high schools because they don't like the coach or the whatever. So it's different, and Bill is an amazing manager of egos and personalities that he convinces you that, hey, if you sacrifice this, we're going to do some great things. And he uses this statement a lot. We got to get old and stay old. And you don't win a national championship last year without 2 things. Getting your butts whipped against USC. That had to hurt.
Yeah.
Had to hurt.
100%.
Lost by 30+. And Bill goes into the press conference, and what does he say? We need to get bigger, faster, stronger, different guys, more guys, whatever. We got to basically reboot. And who do you win a national championship with?
Same guys plus Remy.
Same guys plus Remy. And so how much did that stick in your craw a little bit? Hearing those statements, what did you do to improve? What did Oach do? What did CB do? What did Jay Will do? And then you add, and really the only one you added, and this is no offense to J. Cole or Joe Yesufu because they were new, but really 7 guys played in the national championship game, right? Mm-hmm. And you were one of them. What was the locker room like after the USC game?
I would say after the USC game, that was a tough locker room. I mean, for me, being around, like, Marcus Garrett knew that was going to be his last game, and that really sucked for the guys around him because we love Marcus. To see that and to see that was the way that he lost in his last game, that sucks. And I think all of us understood that it means so much to him, and it means so much to us that we owe it to everybody around us, everybody that came before us to kind of take a run at it again. Yeah. Like you said, what did we do after the season? I think all of us really locked in on our own craft. Like we got in the weight room, we got in the gym. I think the guy that I can really speak on because I'm around a lot was Ochai. He was. I would come to practice and he'd be in a full sweat, already done with a workout when I got to the locker room. Like it was crazy to see the amount of effort and the amount of hard work that he put into it. And
I'm glad you brought Ochai up because we talked about this. Wayne and I talked about this a lot last year after the national title. Most guys that get NBA feedback that's negative pisses them off, and or they ignore it and they just say, you know what, R.C. Buford or pick a basketball mind that gives them the advice and says, they don't know what they're talking about, I'm going to go anyway. Ochai took it, absorbed it, got better, and turned himself into the 14th pick in the draft. That doesn't happen very often because egos come to play. And Ochai comes back, leads his team to a national championship. It's one of the best stories ever. And will it be a model for others? I don't know. But it kind of is with Jay Will right now.
I think people can learn from it. I mean, you look at Och and Jay Will. Those are guys that are doing 4 years of college, and they're learning from a great basketball mind in Coach Self. They're learning from being around other great basketball minds like yourselves, and learning how to get better.
Him or me?
I mean, both of y'all. You're just exquisite basketball mind over there.
Right, just basketball mind.
But like I was saying about like Och and Jay Will, is like those guys. They put in the work. They weren't. When they showed up here, they weren't going to be the one and done guys. Like they had the ability to get better. And now you look at Jay Will, he has 38 points last night.
Yeah.
Ochai has scored 17 2 nights ago for the Jazz. Like those are guys that are going to make livings playing basketball.
Before we let you go, we talked a lot about the 125th year anniversary, but let's talk about the game before the 125th year anniversary, because you were a part. Were you here you were here in 18, right?
Yeah.
When we lost on the 120-year anniversary, and you remember Bill's speech at the dinner that night was kind of like, oh, you guys built this, 500 former
Jazz. These guys disgraced it.
These guys disgraced it, and they're an embarrassment. And he there was, I don't know, however many tables, and there were 2 tables of you guys, and he talked to everybody for about 2 minutes, and then for about 30 minutes.
Breathing fire on you
guys. Just
spitting
fire at you guys. And everyone, I think, a lot of our wives were there and other people, and they're just like, oh, my God. He wasn't cussing or doing anything like that.
He was speaking facts.
He was speaking facts, and you guys would go on to win, go to the Final Four. But as we talk about the game against Iowa State, how, as a player just recently done, how does Bill do it? Constantly winning one-possession games, which, granted, earlier this week we lost a one-possession game in Manhattan. Sucks. Odds are against you. You're not going to win 100 out of 100. But what's your opinion on how Bill does it?
I think it's just a testimony to how he coaches his players and what he expects from us. I think you look back at boot camp and you look back at the hard things we have to go through to get to where we are today. Those moments prepare us for one possession games, and I think it's important how mentally tough our guys are, and they have the ability to persevere when we're up one, we got to get a stop, and they go out there and they have the ability to do so. I think Coach Self does a great job of the X's and O's as well. If you give us a timeout with the ball down late or up late or down late, you're gonna have a good look, and I think all the guys on the team fully trust him, and that trust is important.
And Wayne, speaking of that, I was obviously there earlier this week in Manhattan at the game. You're watching the game. You know ball better than anybody. Talk about the last possession of regulation, the last possession of overtime. It was so uncharacteristic of a Kansas team, as we're talking about how many one-possession games we win. Didn't work out that way against Kansas State. And more than that, we didn't get a shot off on either one, which is very rare. And I think a lot of us, it was a head-scratcher for the announcers, I would assume everybody in Bramlage, but your thoughts on what transpired late in that game on Tuesday?
Yeah, and before I get to that, I'll just echo with what Mitch has said. I mean, there's so much confidence that you have in Coach, through the preparation that he has, through his track record of being able to win those type of games. I'm thinking back even a few weeks ago, we were down 10, 5 minutes left against OU here, and my heart rate wasn't even going up. Just because, I figured it was only a matter of time before Coach would push the right button and get the guys going there. We saw that against Iowa State late. I think that the building obviously helped. Having former players and coaches watching obviously helped because there is a pressure. When you have those guys looking, when you've got Larry Brown and Roy Williams looking into the huddle, when you've got,
And Bill talked about that at the event. Not to interrupt, but he's at timeouts, and he goes, "There's no pressure last night." I'm looking past my guys, and I see Roy Williams, Larry Brown, and Ted Owens in his.
And they probably don't have any thoughts or opinions.
No, those guys. I'm sure Larry was just like, "Just do what you think's best." Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do.
I will say what was different about the K-State game, though, is very rarely do we find ourselves in a game point situation down 3 starters. With guys that are in the game who haven't been in there at game point. And Bobby, Zach, Joe growing into their role, Zuby for that matter. But it's different when you're on the road, game point, and that ball is in your hands.
And I think the frustrating part is that we lost. But you just mentioned Zuby, Joe, Bobby. They're getting valuable time. Didn't work out in our favor, but those are teaching moments.
100%. You grow from those.
And they're going to watch film on that, and they're going to learn from it. Sucks that we lost, but hey, welcome to the rest of college basketball. Teams lose. We're so spoiled, and we take games like that for granted because we're all just like, can't believe we lost. Like, we're just shocked. But that's Kansas math.
Kind of what you said, I wanted to echo that, is that game, and even if we lost, it's going to impact Bobby, Zuby, Joe, Zach. It's going to help them get better because you learn more in a loss, I feel like, than you do in a win. If you squeak that game out and you win by 1, then all is well. I mean, you kind of go on to the next. But now you're going to think back to that game and what can you do better and what things can we fix, and that's going to help us down the line.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time as, Bill's record with back-to-back losses is amazing. I don't have it in front of me, but he rarely loses consecutive games.
He's got the famous saying, don't let 1 turn into 2.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And as you watch social media and all of our fans are saying, oh, that was a good loss, or whenever I hear good loss, fine, that's great. But a good loss is only proven to be a good loss if you win the next one, if you take what you learn from the loss and get better. Now, it's going to be a little different because we're at home. TCU is really, really good.
Good team.
They just whooped the team that beat us on Tuesday last week. So there's no easy games in this league. I mean, there's going to be a bottom. I don't know who it is yet. It's looking like West Virginia. But other than that,
it's hard.
We've had 3 home games. They've all been 4-point wins or less, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look around the league and it's just so stacked top to bottom. I mean, you get any of the teams in our league and put them in a different league and they're finishing top 3. It's pretty impressive. I think that's just a testament to how competitive all the guys are in our league and all the coaches are in our league, and it's even more a testament to how impressive Kansas is and how impressive the guys on this year's team are.
Before we let you go, tell us what's next for you. Obviously, you're rehabbing for the next 3 or 4 months, but you're going to be around a lot more. You're going to move to Lawrence, just be around, right?
Hopefully, that's the goal. I mean, if I can get a spot helping out with the guys, I'll try and do whatever I can to help this place. And I know you guys are probably a little sick of me after 6 years, but who knows, 7 may be coming. But it's just been special to be around the program.
You're got some big news coming up in 23.
Yep, getting married. I got engaged in September, and we're planning for August, and it's gonna be a blast. I'm super pumped. I know you guys are gonna be there, and that means a lot to me.
Yep, August 19th.
August 19th.
That's my birthday, actually.
Yeah, no, we're going to celebrate you that day,
I don't want to take away from your
We'll
big
bring a birthday
day,
cake for you.
Okay, good. And are we talking bachelor party ideas? You
Yeah.
want to talk to Wayne and I
Yeah,
off
I mean,
the
I think
air,
you guys have to be there. I mean, it wouldn't be the same without you guys.
Okay.
I mean, I think I like the Wayne's bachelor party ideas better than yours, so they're probably a little bit safer for
Have
me.
I given you any ideas yet?
You're already trying to take it over, man. You haven't even invited you. You just invited yourself there anyway.
Shocking that I try to take something over. Yes, well, one of the all-time great Jayhawks, the winningest Jayhawk in the history of the all-time winningest program, sort of.
Kind
Is
of.
that fair to say it that way?
Yeah, asterisk, 5 years.
Asterisk, because I believe it's Kirk Heinrich, right? Or
Tyrell Reed.
Tyrell Reed. Oh, my bad. Well,
I got no
Tyrell.
asterisk by it because you chose to stay here. You know, you
guy.
chose to
My
be
guy.
here, right? You could have gone somewhere else and finished up in the transfer portal world. You chose to stay Jayhawk. Remember?
No place like Kansas, baby.
Jayhawk.
kiss ass.
Little Jayhawk.
Total kiss ass. Hey, you're listening to the Jayhawker Podcast, brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System.
I had this patient. His cancer treatment had him in the hospital for a while. One day, he was telling me about his grandson and how a big night was coming up for him. So we arranged to make it a big night for my patient too. I sometimes wonder if I'm doing all I can. Then I help make a moment like this possible, and I know I am.
Lipsy dribbling right side, looking for Grill from Mays, Kansas. Throws it up from 40 feet. It misses. KU's got to win. The Kansas kid couldn't get it done. Ball game over. You can rock. Chalk it up. The Jayhawks win.
That was the game-winning call brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System. Brian Haney, Greg Gurley with the call. Game point, had a timeout. Bill Self comes right out. What option in 1 through 5 do you think KJ was to make that play?
Probably number 5, but the thing that I really like about that play is that KJ Adams caught the ball in a spot on the court where he is consistently making plays. One of the things we've seen, we see regularly the pick and roll in the slot, which is kind of mid-court. KJ short rolling right about to the elbow, and then he's very well versed in being able to know what to do there. He's become a pretty good passer out of that, playing 2-on-1, usually finding Grady Dick or someone like that in the corner, or he can make a hard dribble drive, and he's really, really hard to stop because of how athletic and how physical he is, and we saw he finished the game winner there.
And he's not, to say that he's not gifted offensively is probably not the right statement. But what I mean by that, you're not going to post him up and he's going to make a Hakeem Olajuwon move, baby hook. He's so much more dangerous, like you said, on that short roll, little pocket pass at the free throw line, and using his body and athleticism to get to the rim. That's all he did on Saturday. He went right at Jones, actually got fouled, and played through the contact because he's a superior athlete and really, really strong, and made a game winner because of just being instinctive.
Yeah, now he's even becoming more and more of a threat because with his ability to drive the basketball, now he's shown the ability to make free throws, which makes him even more dangerous. And so I think we'll continue to see a ton of productivity from him in that area, and some that could likely lead to more wins for us.
Not to bring up a negative, but against K-State, free throws were kind of his bugaboo. And I talk a lot about KJ's early on free throw. He was terrible. And then he was shooting over 80% over a span of about 10, 12 games. Last night fell back a little bit, but, man, was he good offensively. When we struggled offensively, KJ was 6 of 6. He kept us in the game that first half when K-State got out to that 14-point lead, and it was KJ and DeJuan, little two-man game. KJ 6 of 6 and had 4 assists in that first half.
Yeah, one thing that I believe is severely underrated about KJ's offensive ability is his ability to set screens.
Yeah.
We saw in the second half at K-State that once he got into foul trouble and then eventually fouled out, our ability to get downhill and get paint touches was severely limited because Zach and Zuby aren't as proficient in being able to set screens. That come down to timing, it comes down to angle, it comes down to physicality, it comes down to smarts and being able to do that without fouling, and he's very, very well versed at that.
Well, you said two things there, timing and angle, and it takes two to tango. The guard has to wait for the screen. A lot of times you see us get called for illegal screens, sometimes it's the guard's fault because the big guy comes out, and if he starts to go, the big guy knows he's got to set a screen, and he'll kind of slide, and that's when you get called. So if the timing's there and the angle's there, you got to wait, and then you get much more space, and sometimes DeJuan gets a little ahead of himself. And we saw that last Tuesday with timing with Zuby on that last play of regulation. He kind of set the screen but slipped it. It was more Zuby's fault than anyone's. And then the pass got picked off where we dodged a major bullet when they didn't just get a layup at the end of the game on game point. But that's the week. You win against Iowa State, lose a tight one in the Sunflower Showdown. You move on, you learn from it. And Saturday, we've got TCU, which lost a couple games, but they're right there. I mean, they got pros, Mike Miles, O'Bannon, Baugh, and then a big guy in the middle that I want you to comment on, Lampkin. Different style of play. He's kind of got a, I don't want to say weird body, but he's got kind of thin legs, and he seems kind of, I don't know how he does it, but he's really, really effective. He's got great hands. Not a great athlete. He's not going to jump over you, but he jumps about that high at the floor, but seems like he's hard to guard.
Yeah, he is. He's unorthodox. He's a little bit awkward. He's got the ability to finish over both shoulders, so he could pose a particular tough test for a guy like KJ. But on the other end, he's got to guard KJ too, right? And so KJ's speed and athleticism could potentially offset Lampkin's and what he's able to do on the offensive end as well.
Yeah, and we need to bring it. Our fan base has been great all year, and this building gets us wins. And Saturday, coming off a loss, we need Jayhawk Nation here. Not that we're not going to sell out or whatever. We just need the energy, and our guys have to provide that energy like they did against Iowa State. That was such a well-played game, even though it was 62-60, which is
Iowa State's good.
Iowa State's really good. And you saw Tuesday what they did to Texas, that they took care of business. Tyrese Hunter comes back, and we know the Iowa State fans, they don't like it when you leave them. And when you come back, I'm sure Tyrese Hunter is glad to be out of Ames, even though they got a loss. But Saturday is going to be huge. Really quick turnaround. When you're Kansas, you play a lot of big Monday games, so you obviously play on Saturday. And Saturday against TCU, we get about 24 hours to hopefully enjoy a win. Then we're on a plane to Waco.
Yeah, the Saturday-Monday turnaround can be a little bit tough, but one thing that I like to share with the guys is most of them aspire to be pros. This is just a reality at the next level that you're going to be playing at.
Sometimes it's back-to-back.
Yeah, a lot of times it's back-to-back, or a lot of times it's 4 games and 7 nights, and you're on flights and hotels and different things like that. And so, it's a part of the game of basketball, and it's going to be a greater part of hopefully the level that we know some of our guys are going to get to in terms of being on NBA rosters.
If you talk about some other sports, we talked last week about how ingrained you are in our women's program. Talk about their past weekend and what they have upcoming.
Yeah, man, they're in a really, really tough stretch on a 3-game skid. And I think even when you looked at the breakdown of their schedule early, you knew this was going to be tough. Tough Baylor team here at home, on the road in Austin, Texas, who they've been perennial powers in the Big 12 as well, and then a ranked opponent in Norman coming up a little bit short there. So they got a tall task, against West Virginia coming up, but at least it's here in the field house. It's against a team that they had some success before, and hopefully they can course correct before they get ready to take on K-State in the Sunflower Showdown.
School just started up on Tuesday, so obviously our football team is back, starting workouts, and we got some great news. News that we expected, but Jalen Daniels has officially said he will be back.
Officially.
Final. Jalen Daniels will be back. I mean, he just wowed everybody last year in those first 5 games, had his injury. Took a little bit to get back, but, man, was he good in the Liberty Bowl. Records all the way around, over 500 yards passing, and provided us as Kansas fans with some great memories. And then, the loss sucks. But I think this offseason, with so many guys coming back, and then obviously Jalen Daniels is a huge piece of that.
Yeah, I can't undersell how big of a deal that is for Kansas football, especially with the dynamic type of player that he is. Obviously a key anchor for the success that we had this year. And then in the world of the transfer portal, where guys like that come to a developing Power 5 program typically get poached by other schools from other conferences with better NIL or better resources or this and that. And I think that it's a real testament to Lance Leipold in the culture that he's built here. We talked about buying a little bit earlier. A kid like Jalen Daniels does not stay an additional year unless there's buy-in to the culture that's been established. You think about that, hey, yeah, Devin Neal and a guy like that, he's a Lawrence kid. He wants to be here. We got Jalen Daniels from California.
Yeah.
I bet every Pac-12 school back close to home in a bigger market with bigger this, bigger that was trying to lure him away from Lawrence, Kansas, and what Coach Leipold has going on. And it's such an exciting news that he's going to be a Jayhawk for next year.
Yeah, and it's no different for Bill Self, Lance Leipold, Brandon Snyder. You have to re-recruit your players that are here. It's always been, the season's over, you got to go out and find new guys and gals. But now you have to re-recruit. Lance Leipold had to sell Jalen Daniels on coming back. He had to sell Devin Neal, just like Bill's going to have to sell guys. And when I say sell, I mean like convince that they're going to come back. And then you got to go out, once you determine that, which they could still leave later. Once they determine that, then you got to go find guys to replace the guys that actually leave. And their jobs have gotten monumentally more difficult re-recruiting their own team.
Yeah, and NIL is a big part of that in terms of that conversation. Being an important and a key ingredient, and obviously the other guys that are coming back, it's going to be a pretty big void to fill with Lonnie Phelps. The most quick twitch and aggressive defensive player. Yeah. On that side of the basketball or on that side of the football, but hopefully we can fill them in with some new guys we have coming in.
How about some former Jayhawks making a name in the playoffs right now in the NFL? Dorrance Armstrong, Cowboys, second in sacks this year. They're finally won a game. The Cowboys finally are moving on in the playoffs. Hakeem Adeniji with Cincinnati, they moved on. What else we got? Kyron Johnson with the Eagles, the number 1 seed in the East. So a lot of our guys are making a big impact on playoff teams, and it's fun to follow their success.
Yeah, it is, and it certainly makes it more enjoyable this time of year. Obviously, 2 homers like you and I are going to be locked in on the Chiefs.
I love that the TCU game's at noon, so we can go somewhere at 3:30 and watch the Chiefs pummel the Jags. If we take a 27-0 lead versus the Jags, we better win 54-0.
Yeah, no, but it's also great to be able to look around the league and keep an eye on some Jayhawks that are having some great success as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Jayhawker Podcast, brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System. Big game this weekend with TCU. Quick flip with Baylor on Monday. We'll be back next week to recap those games and then get ready for another big game that doesn't really, I say it doesn't matter because it's not a league game, but we go to Rupp here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Battle of the Blue Bloods, top 2 all-time winningest programs in the history of college basketball. Battle it out in Lexington, Kentucky. But first things first, TCU and Baylor next week. Rock Chalk. This is the Jayhawker Podcast, brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System.